Bore pawb, croeso ar Abertawe. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Swansea, particularly to the Liberty Stadium, home of the Swans and the mighty Ospreys. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. We're delighted to be taking part in this inaugural Marine Energy Wales annual conference. It's a prestigious and an important event. Representatives here today include developers, government, academics, regulators, consultants, and a diverse range of the supply chain. Effectively, we're all at the forefront of this emerging and exciting opportunity for sustainable marine energy generation. And by doing so, we're driving a critical change in the UK's energy mix. The specific and very real opportunities here in Wales give Wales the opportunity to become a global leader. It's so important, therefore, that we all work together in making this come to fruition. We do face challenging times. Environmentally, we have the climate change commitments following Paris. Economically, Brexit is now a reality. We also face a high degree of uncertainty in our energy futures, and all of this against a very dynamic political landscape globally. So I'd like to provide you with a brief insight and update on Tidal Lagoon Power's vision to create a thriving and sustainable tidal lagoon industry based here in Wales. I'll obviously speak in the context of tidal lagoons, but the principles will apply to all these marine energy projects generally. A quick recap then on who we are and what we're trying to achieve. Our vision and our ethos will be similar to many of your organisations' visions and ethos here in the room today. Essentially, we're looking to promote sustainable development in its fullest form through the efficient use of long-term, low-carbon energy from indigenous sources. Our mission at TLP happens to be to focus on delivering this using tidal range technology, in other words, developing infrastructure that harnesses the inherent natural power from the rise and fall of the tides. And as you'll know, Tidal Lagoon Power is very strongly focused on delivering in and for Wales. So our current status: Swansea Bay Tidal Lagoon is effectively oven-ready, and full-scale lagoons such as Cardiff are now in the pipeline. For Swansea, we're pleased to have secured planning consent in 2015, and we're hopeful of finalising the marine licence process by early 2018. Planning for construction takes place for later that year, later in 2018. Meanwhile, in 2015, we submitted the scoping report, which essentially starts the consenting process for our first full-scale lagoon in Cardiff. And we've been doing detailed survey and modelling work at Cardiff since then. Financially, we're on a sound foundation, with ongoing backing from our key equity investors, Prudential and Infrared. Politically, as Byron mentioned, we're very fortunate in enjoying strong cross-party support at both ends of the M4, but particularly here in Wales. And the Hendry Review, which was commissioned last year, reported in January very positively on the outputs that Charles was reviewing. So now we're just looking forward to a final decision from the UK government announcing their support any time now. There's been lots of press coverage of Charles Hendry's review, and as Byron mentioned, it was independent, thorough, and conclusive. So I won't go into the details today, but some top-line messages that we take from the report, which I think are particularly relevant. Firstly, tidal lagoons are cost competitive with offshore wind and new nuclear. Tidal Lagoon Swansea Bay, for example, has an equivalent contract for difference price of below £90 per megawatt hour, which brings it in more cheaply than Hinkley. Secondly, tidal lagoons support the UK's drive for security of the energy supply. They contribute towards our decarbonisation targets, and we calculate a portfolio of lagoons across the UK could remove 130 million tonnes of carbon dioxide emissions by 2030. A programme of tidal lagoons could also achieve significant further cost reductions beyond Swansea. And the supply chain opportunities are both real and very substantial. And as we mentioned before, our aim is to drive a UK content of 65% and a Welsh content of at least 50%. Now, all of that is in the context that the UK has an imminent energy gap. We're losing old capacity, nuclear will be slow to deliver, and wind and solar renewables are good, but are less predictable and are intermittent. In his report, Charles Hendry said that the evidence is clear that tidal lagoons can play a cost-effective part in the UK's energy mix. And specifically, he said that Swansea Bay Tidal Lagoon should start as soon as possible as a no-regrets Pathfinder project. And as a Pathfinder, Swansea opens up a whole new industry for a fleet of tidal lagoons, but also a potential spin-off into other marine projects. We've identified around about 9 sites of interest within 2 general deployment zones in the UK, one around the North Wales and North West English coast, and one in the Severn Estuary and Bristol Channel. And we're currently exploring at 5 of those sites more detailed development work, Cardiff being the first and the most advanced of those. We think that tidal lagoons around the UK could provide up to 25 gigawatts of new energy capacity. That's some 12% of the UK's annual electricity demand for over a century. And the beauty is this would be a British industry, British money, exploiting British natural resources, leading to long-term and diverse UK jobs and skills. We believe that 33,500 construction jobs alone from the 4 Welsh lagoons we're looking at, for example, could be delivered. And on the back of Swansea, we have plans for a skills academy, and that will be driven by the future projects to progress careers in Wales from basic trades and construction through to intelligent infrastructure assembly. So this effectively gives birth to a new phase of a national industrial success, founded here in Wales, and acts as a springboard for UK industry in a number of promising new markets overseas. There are benefits too for social and economic regeneration. New energy infrastructure at the heart of Welsh coastal communities with strong links to the UK industrial strategy supports UK competitiveness for the long term. As Dave mentioned, lagoons show a good fit with Welsh Government policies too. As well as the natural alignment with Wales's sustainable development remit overall, tidal lagoons and marine energy generally links to key policy drivers such as Welsh Government's energy policy. Energy Wales, a low-carbon transition, sets out the potential and ambition for Wales to be a world leader in the marine energy market. But the important point is, without action now, there's no obvious prospect of how we'll meet those low-carbon transition targets. We need a step change. Tidal lagoons make huge inroads into this transition and through the entire economy, not just energy production. Examples of those multifunctional benefits would include a step change in the decarbonisation of the Welsh energy production, flood risk and coastal erosion management, climate resilience and adaptation, blue growth of our maritime economy, and particularly would be ports and aquaculture as good examples of that, but also investment in green infrastructure through, for example, habitat creation. Lagoons also support Welsh Government's initiative on energy projects through the Green Growth Wales initiative. And we're working with local partnerships and a number of local authorities to develop investment and community energy schemes that maximise the benefit to Welsh communities. And tidal lagoons are in the programme for government taking Wales forward. This in recognition of tidal lagoons' ability to deliver a restructured economy based on low-carbon approaches. And of course, we have the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act in Wales. This is groundbreaking new legislation, and just some examples of how lagoons fit with the Act. A prosperous Wales, for example, global marine energy prospects started from the hub of a new industry here in Wales, generating jobs and billions of gross value added. A resilient Wales, resilient in terms of energy security, but also coastal flooding and erosion, and ecosystems resilient to climate change. A more equal Wales, tidal lagoons provide benefits to numerous deprived areas, bringing wider skills and training, but also regeneration prospects. And one that strikes a particular chord with me is a globally responsible Wales. Tidal lagoons can be the catalyst for a global marine renewable energy sector centred in Wales, Wales then leads on decarbonisation of the energy sector. It reduces its greenhouse gases emissions, reducing carbon footprint, and makes a positive contribution to global well-being. I think it's notable how strongly aligned the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act goals are with our common aims today. Of course, just as renewable energy helps to protect the environment from climate change impacts, so there are environmental challenges associated with developing in the marine environment. And the Severn Estuary is a perfect example of a complex ecosystem. And it's richly designated, and rightly so, with triple SIs, SACs and SPAs. Tidal Lagoon Power's approach to the environment is to go beyond the statutory minimum set out in legislation. So we start with environmental impact assessments through surveys and modelling, but we have then the Adaptive Environmental Management Plan, which is a vehicle that sets out as a framework to manage the uncertainty that Rhiannon mentioned in her speech through monitoring and mitigation throughout the life of the lagoon. Our approach is then strengthened by 4 additional pillars. We've introduced what we call the evidence plan process, which we've done by bringing together statutory and non-statutory stakeholders to agree surveys and assessments in advance. It helps us to focus on what are the most important priorities and leads to statements of common ground on those. We've employed best-in-class consultants, and I'm pleased to see many of you here today. Thank you for coming. These are specialists in their field, and they're formed into a range of expert topic groups, including the regulators. We've established peer review groups, independent panels of experts who review our work, particularly on issues like fish and coastal processes. And we've established an ecosystems enhancement programme that ensures we achieve a net positive result for biodiversity. We embarked on this ecosystems programme with the purpose of enhancing biodiversity through a targeted nature conservation programme. It takes an ecosystems approach so that we have a net positive effect on the environment. In other words, we want to go beyond simply achieving a neutral outcome. It also helps to foster working with other like-minded organisations across the UK and internationally, such as nature conservation bodies. Example projects and initiatives under the EEP include ideas such as wetland creation, not just salt marsh in the Severn Estuary, for example, but also mudflats on the east coast of England, water quality improvements through changes in land management practice, habitat restoration for migratory fish and birds, opportunities to improve flood risk management, and even supporting international conservation work in biodiversity hotspots around the world. So I'll finish with a quote from Welsh Government's Energy Wales a Low Carbon Transition. We believe that Wales has the potential to be a world leader in the marine energy market as a significant generator and, just as importantly, as an exporter of marine energy knowledge, technologies and services. So true, and that's the reason that most of us are here today. So I hope my brief update has helped to set the scene. I look forward to an informative and enjoyable conference, and I'd like to thank you all for listening, and on behalf of Tidal Lagoon Power, to also thank you all for your continued valuable support. Now let's make it happen. Diolch yn fawr.